They say fire destroys everything, but sometimes, it clears the way for the truth to burn brighter. My cabin was my sanctuary, built with my father's hands, filled with memories, and standing as the last piece of family legacy I had left. But one neighbor, Karen, decided it didn't fit her vision of the neighborhood. What she did next was beyond petty, it was criminal. And when the truth finally came out, she wasn't just embarrassed, she was terrified. Fire, before we dive into this wild HOA revenge story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We've got plenty more real, shocking tales of neighborhood drama that'll keep you hooked, and you won't want to miss a single one. The cabin sat at the edge of the HOA's territory, tucked away in a clearing surrounded by tall pines. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't modern. But it was mine, a place I'd escape to after long weeks, a quiet spot to hike, fish, and breathe without the constant interference of HOA busybodies. But Karen hated it. From the moment she became president of the HOA, she'd made it her mission to turn our rustic community into something it wasn't. She wanted uniform houses, manicured lawns, and market value preservation. My log-style cabin didn't meet her glossy magazine standards. At first, it was little things, nasty notes on my door, violations mailed weekly, complaints about the color of my wood stain being non-compliant. I ignored them all. My property had been there longer than the HOA itself, and I had paperwork proving it. But Karen didn't like being ignored. One Friday night, I drove up to the cabin for the weekend. As I turned onto the gravel road, I smelled it before I saw it, acrid smoke, thick and choking. My heart dropped into my stomach. By the time I pulled up, flames were consuming the cabin. The roof had already collapsed in, and the fire spread fast with the dry wood and summer heat. I jumped out of the truck, yelling, but it was too late. My family's home, the photos, the keepsakes, the tools my father left me, everything was gone in a matter of minutes. The fire chief on the scene was already suspicious. There'd been no lightning, no electrical failure, no accident. This was arson. And I already knew who did it. Two neighbors quietly approached me later that night. Both had seen Karen near my property earlier in the evening. One even swore they saw her car speed off just before the flames started. That was all I needed. The sheriff's department opened a formal investigation, and while Karen thought she could bully her way out with her HOA cronies backing her, she underestimated two things: my patience and the evidence stacking against her. I wasn't just going to rebuild my cabin, I was going to make sure she paid for every single board of it. And when the court date came, she would finally realize just how badly she'd underestimated me. The court date was set a few weeks later, and the small-town courthouse buzzed with anticipation. It wasn't every day that a powerful HOA board member was dragged in on charges as serious as arson. The night before the trial, I sat at my kitchen table with my lawyer, Evelyn, who carefully went over every detail. "She's going to try to frame this as an accident," Evelyn warned, adjusting her glasses. "She'll claim she didn't know the lantern would fall, or that she wasn't anywhere near the cabin." I nodded. "But we've got her on video, and the fire marshal confirmed the accelerant." "That's not an accident." Evelyn smiled. "Exactly. When we present this in front of the judge, Karen's arrogance will be her downfall." The next morning, Karen strutted into court like it was a board meeting she was destined to control. She wore a sharp suit, and her lawyer followed closely behind. She spotted me across the room and smirked, as though this was nothing more than a nuisance. When the judge entered, the room settled into silence. The prosecution began, presenting the fire marshal's report and photographs of the burned-out cabin. Then, they called me to the stand. I took a deep breath and described what the cabin meant to me, how it was my grandfather's legacy, the place where my family gathered every summer. I recounted the night of the fire, the smoke choking the air, the disbelief when I saw Karen fleeing the scene. Karen's lawyer tried to twist my words, asking, "Isn't it true you and Ms. Karen had disagreements about your cabin being out of code?" "Yes," I said calmly, "but disagreements don't justify arson." She set fire to my family's history. "And we have proof." That was Evelyn's cue. She handed the bailiff a USB drive, which was plugged into the courtroom monitor. The grainy security footage filled the screen, Karen creeping through the trees, crouching near the cabin, striking a match, and tossing it inside. Gasps filled the room. Karen's face went pale. Her lawyer stammered, "Your Honor, this could be anyone," but the video zoomed in on Karen's distinct red jacket and unmistakable blonde hair. There was no denying it. When Karen was called to testify, her arrogance cracked. "I didn't mean for it to go that far," she snapped. "The cabin was a hazard. I was trying to send a message that it needed to be torn down before it hurt someone." The judge's eyes narrowed. "So you admit to starting the fire?" Karen froze. Her lawyer tugged on her sleeve, but the damage was already done. She'd confessed, on record, in front of everyone. The trial ended with a guilty verdict. Karen was sentenced to several years in prison for arson, reckless endangerment, and destruction of property. The HOA board, scrambling to save face, publicly condemned her actions and voted her out immediately. But it was too late. The damage to their reputation was irreparable. The insurance money, combined with Karen's ordered restitution, allowed me to rebuild the cabin. This time, I upgraded it: sturdier wood, modern fireproofing, and a stone hearth my grandfather would have been proud of. On the front porch, I hung a bronze plaque that read, "This cabin survived fire, but not family memories. Built stronger in honor of the Bennett family legacy." Neighbors who once whispered behind my back now came by to offer help, bringing food, lumber, and goodwill. It turned out most of them had been afraid to speak against Karen, but with her gone, the entire community felt freer. Months later, I returned to court one last time, for Karen's civil lawsuit. I had filed for damages against her personally, and I won. Her assets, her car, her designer jewelry, even her house, were seized to pay what she owed. Watching her break down in front of the judge, realizing she'd lost everything, was the closure I never thought I'd get. And when I drove up to my newly rebuilt cabin, the sun setting over the lake, I couldn't help but smile. Karen had tried to destroy my family's history. Instead, she'd given me the chance to rebuild it stronger, and in the process, she destroyed herself. Some battles you don't choose, but when you stand your ground, justice has a way of catching up with people like her.